All right, welcome into Floor's Yours. Wow, I was not expecting that. Welcome into Floor's Yours, an extension of Five on the Floor, the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Apparently, Alex is doing this from a rave, so that's good. We've got 4 different locations today, actually, than maybe we're typically at, again, because Alex is doing this from a rave. Again, extension of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, sponsored, as always, by our friends over at Biscayne Bay Brewing, but also MarkBrownPA.com. Actually, I'm talking to Mark this week because he's handling the title on my house. So there you go. So if you want to see if we actually use the sponsors, we do, because not only is he a Miami sports fan, he's really good at his job, and he's a really good guy, and he's based in North Lauderdale. There's a phone number, 954-566-5678, 954-566-5678. Again, it's MarkBrownPA.com. This is where you go if you need your title done. Mention 5 Reasons, $295. That's a really good deal, I can tell you. Also, he'll help you with estate planning, which is something that I need to start doing as well with all of these 5 Reasons millions. Well, actually, no. But anyway, MarkBrownPA.com, MarkBrownPA.com. Again, MarcBrownPA.com. And as I said, a big Miami sports fan. All right, let's go to the crew tonight. We're all, well, 2 of us are in different locations than usual. I'm actually in Orlando on a family trip with my daughter. Michael Christian in the top right usually lives in Orlando, but he's actually in Las Vegas, which is why we brought him in today.
He's in the coolest spot out of all of us.
Well, you're definitely not. I will say that. So that's Greg's in the South somewhere, and then Alex is at a rave in Miami. So we got the 4 of us: Alex Toledo, Michael Christian, Greg Sylvander, and me. And let's get right to it. Again, Michael is also from Feel the Heat. Yes, it is Michael from Feel the Heat. His co-host Alana checks in here with us. Brought Michael on tonight because we're going to talk a lot of Summer League. We will do more Summer League conversation. We're going to have Brady Hawk on the pod with us. He's been writing a bunch of really good stories for the site, which you can check out also always as always free. And also, we'll have Sean Rochester on here in the next week. We're planning on bringing Norris Cole on, our newest contributor, who actually Michael and Marco. We got Marco Romo out there as well, and Tony Schwartz, all from 5 Reasons. And you actually ran into Norris out there, and Norris was sharing a conversation with Haslam. So we're going to bring him on. But let's just start here with Summer League. I want to start with the negative first, because that's kind of how I roll. We will get into the positives, and there are a lot of them. I will ask this question to you. Seeing him up close, Michael, is KZ Okpala salvageable?
Man, that's a tough question. I feel like there's so much about KZ that you got to love, right? He's got all the things that you want to see from a physical standpoint. He's got the length. It just doesn't ever get put together. And you compare him with the other guys who are out there on the floor, right? You've got Marcus Garrett. You've got Giroux out there. Like when those guys are out there playing and you watch KZ, he doesn't look to be on their level even. And this is their first taste of like kind of NBA action, which is kind of disheartening. So I'm not going to say he's unsalvageable, but at this point, as a Miami Heat fan and as a Miami Heat watcher, I think if they move on from KZ, it's probably for the best for both parties.
Yeah, Alex and Greg, we'll get to how they do that in a second. But Alex, I mean, when you look at KZ, I think we were all kind of saying, just get to a Summer League, or get to a full G League. Okay, well, he's had some G League. He's had some Summer League. I mean, I would understand if he didn't look as good as maybe a Miami Heat drafted prospect. But, like, he looks like the 5th best player in the starting lineup when he's playing with 4 undrafted guys. I mean, I don't – do they have to give him something to do? I just can't figure out offensively what it is he does particularly well.
I'm not sure either. I think there was always more hopes than anything, and just kind of like when we would talk about kind of where his bread was buttered on offense in Stanford, it was a lot of stuff. Oh, wow. That is spot on.
That's pretty good. By the way, Super Chat.
He's back.
Ben, if those comments are that good, you don't have to pay us. But for the rest of you, if you want us to read your comments, go to the Super Chat. Help us out. We're all staying.
I can't reach my keys, man. Damn it.
At least tip Michael. Tip Michael.
Yeah,
$1.99.
please, guys. I'm working valet. I need the tip.
Alex, go ahead.
I mean, look. I got thrown off talking about tips. I'm an Uber driver, so that you immediately threw me off there. I don't know what that is, but what do you call it? KZ Okpala, he can't get by anybody. He has that little one spin move that he will go to last season, but he just kind of uses it randomly. Like he gets all nervous when he plays offense. I don't know. It's really weird, man. Like it's been too long at this point, understanding that he had an Achilles injury, which really sucks to have it that early. I'm sure that messed with his confidence, blah, blah, blah. We talked about the lack of Summer League, the lack of G League. That stuff has been addressed over and over and over again. Despite all that, he should not be looking consistently worse than Deke Giroux, than Marcus Garrett, than these guys who are just coming here now. I mean, look, the one guy that KZ has looked better than maybe is like who Javonte Smart or Drew Smith, maybe. I don't know, because even like RJ Nemard, is that how you pronounce his name?
Mm-hmm.
Had a one great game. Like KZ has not given you one great game since that preseason game versus the Raptors where he hit 6 threes. Like, and that's the thing. If he's not going to be, a 3-and-D prospect for you, what's he going to be? I don't know.
Well, I mean, Greg, let's get to it. I mean, they gave up a couple of second-round picks to just move up. Yes, hi, Sasha, just behind me. They gave up a couple of second-round picks to get him, in addition, obviously, to the pick that they used to move up. They don't, you don't like to admit mistakes.
They got to cut bait. I mean,
but how do you cut bait? Like, what do you attach a second-round pick? I mean, I thought they could use KZ to unlock the OKC pick.
They probably could.
You think they could? You think OKC would unlock it for him?
I think maybe not that, but I think that you don't need to attach an asset to a player making $1.7 million to move them. It's just not realistic. There's a team that needs to get to the salary floor that'll take him for a protected second round pick if you want to open up a roster spot. So getting rid of him that way, I don't think is the issue. It kind of stinks because it gives me a little bit of the vibe, and I don't know that he'll ever reach this level of a player, even though it's not an all-star, but it gives me a Darrell Wright vibe. Like he's not ready now, and maybe like 5 years from now, he actually will be a functional starter, but he's not ready now, and we all know what timeline we're on.
Well, all right, Darrell's an interesting guy to bring up for a couple of reasons, but the one thing about Darrell to understand, though, is Darrell came out of high school, okay? And he also was drafted to a team that would not have drafted him if circumstances were different. They would have drafted Jameer Nelson more likely, but they didn't know they were getting Shaq. So they drafted Darrell Wright thinking he was going to run with a young team, and then all of a sudden the timeline got accelerated. I mean, I remember I made the trip to Estero, Florida, where Darrell was living with Earl Barron in like a little community, like playing G League ball. Okay, while the Heat were moving on. Deep into the playoffs. I mean, at the time it was D-League ball, I guess. But, I mean, Darrell found a skill, like defensively, and then also he became a pretty good three-point shooter. And I feel like Heat fans are like, okay, if you get that baseline from KZ, but again, KZ's 4 years older than, he's older than Darrell was when he came in.
Yeah, so it's not looking good. It's not looking good.
I just don't. I mean, I'm with Michael. Like on paper, it sounds good, but it's just some guys are just not NBA basketball players, and I hate to say it right now, he's not. All right, so let's get beyond that. Then let's get to the positive. We've seen our guy Turk here. And he's played against a little better competition now. So I feel like even though he's had to fight Turk, well, the Turk, Turk Nowitzki, okay, all the rest of this.
I didn't know he picked up that nickname already. Ethan's it rolled off the tongue like that's known. All right,
that's
25 years in the biz does.
That's Gad's nickname. That's how this works. Okay, so let's get to him and sort of what we've seen as he's gone against higher level of competition. We'll start again with you, Michael. Like. I mean, it's not going to be as easy as it looked early on, but it still looks like he belongs.
Yeah, no, it definitely looks like he belongs. He does a lot of things right for this team. I mean, his positioning down in the paint and in the post and everything, it's fantastic positioning. My only thing with him when he was down there was a couple times where you could tell the other defender was getting the better of him from a strength point of view, right? You could tell he wasn't really pushing back a lot, but the positioning was great enough that all he had to do was turn and put up the little like hook, and it was totally fine. So he was doing great through that. And that's true. I can talk about that one later. I got to dap up Caron Butler because his trash talk was amazing. But Omer looks ready for it, man. He looks ready for it. I think they made the right move, giving the
Wait, hold on a second. Wait. You don't need to pay for that comment, Chef.
It's already up. Yeah, of course it doesn't pay.
Michael is a budget value. Ariel, I can't ever pronounce Ariel's name.
I mean,
I'm gonna get upset. Look at that. What is that?
How many times have you been on and you still can't say Atias?
I can't say Atias. Go ahead, continue.
You just said it. Yeah, no, Omer looks great. He does a lot of things right. That final play to kind of tie it with the alley-oop. I mean, his way of coming off the defender, being able to run down the floor, it was fantastic. I think I'm really happy having him on the team, and that size is going to be great, especially if he can bulk up a little bit more.
All right, so Alex, go to you again on this. Does he look like a player that could actually be put next to Bam for any kind of extended minutes this season?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what they're building him up for. And I think we're going to talk about this on another pod in the future, and something you tweeted about earlier this week when it comes to the roster construction of this team.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's a lot of older dudes who, you know, we're all fans of the guys they brought in for the basketball fit. But as far as, you know, the construction, it feels like between all the dead spots, all the older dudes, they're going to have these young guys out there as innings eaters throughout the season. We're going to see a lot of Gabe and a lot of Strus from the get-go. That's going to be a backup point, a backup three. I feel like I'd be surprised if it's anybody else. And then I wouldn't be surprised if, like, a couple weeks, you know, within the first couple of weeks, we start to see some Omer just to kind of see what he can do out there. And if he does well, I wouldn't be surprised if he becomes that third innings eater out there where it's like, okay, they're getting these young guys in that pipeline. It's keeping some of the more important guys ready. But I think he can, like, there's an easy mold for him to fill. It's a stretch big that we've seen play next to Bam in the past who drops on defense. Now, that's the one thing. Spo, ever since Crowder has, you know, turned this team into a real switch defense. So obviously you drop on the floor, but that's the thing. You know, you bring Omer on and you have more personnel to actually be able to drop and work that out properly. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you have a great perimeter defender going along in that defense with Omer dropping, it makes his job a lot easier. It's just about his ability to move laterally. I want to see how that looks versus actual NBA players. He seems just smart. Like, I think he can be that type of guy sooner than later. I wouldn't be surprised.
Let's follow on that thought, because I know we've been saving this pod all week, so I don't want to deep dive on it here, but we are going to have a full pod, maybe even Sunday into next week, where Greg and I and Alex kind of go at it about the roster construction, because I feel like Greg and I have carved out some different positions here, and I feel like Alex is a little closer to the middle, so we may have him moderate this one a little bit more, because I feel like I'm a little bit more on the extreme. But this does play into what we're talking about, which is this idea that the Heat have no, like, middle-aged players anymore. Like, Pat used to talk about, like, the sweet spot for a player was like 25 or 26 to 29. They don't have many of those guys. I mean, Vic is on the outer edge of it, and we're not going to see him for months, right? So, I mean, because of the way that the Heat are constructed now, it's like old guys, okay, which they brought in more, or it's like green guys, and the guys who are actually in their prime, it's like Bam is on, like, the front edge of it. He's not quite there yet.
Bam's in his prime.
Okay, I think he's in his prime, but we actually feel like there's more there for 3 or 4 or 5 years. But I'm saying, you know, as he sort of grows into the role, Duncan is kind of, I guess, in his prime because of age perspective, and Depot is kind of on the back end of it. But again, we're not going to see him for a while. But Jimmy is, you know, a past prime player. He's still an elite player, but as far as age-wise, and obviously Tucker, Lowry, Markieff are older. I mean, before we get to Haslam. And then it's just a bunch of young guys. And Greg, that is, I mean, as we talk about Strus, these are not, even Dedmon's an older guy. These are not, like, luxury players for this team. That's my problem with the roster construction. It's like, you're going to get some innings eaters and you're going to get beat because young players are inconsistent and old players are injured, right?
Well, that's what happens when you're top heavy.
I mean,
three guys are older.
I mean, if we're going to be the most pessimistic versions of ourselves today, then that's absolutely how it's going to go. All the veterans are going to get hurt and all the young players are not going to get better at all. But unfortunately, if you just stick to the window that you referenced from an age perspective, guys like Dwayne Dedmon, I think he's only 30 or 31 years old. Is today's birthday? Happy birthday, Dwayne Dedmon.
Yes. If you're 32 today, by the way.
The most popular player in the Heat organization,
32. Okay. So, like, and I feel like Jimmy is a unique case where he's still in his prime. Bam is like, he's a young player, but he's way beyond his years. And this is the other thing. I didn't expect Tyler to be back, but let's acknowledge that, like, if you look at Tim Hardaway Jr.'s numbers and the contract he just got, and then you look at what Tyler Hero's doing in kind of a down year last year, to expect him not to get better at all, I think is unrealistic. So to your point, I think that they're definitely a couple of those kind of middle of the road guys short. But maybe this is just the way that it's going to look, and it's going to be a little bit different. Max Strus looks like he may be a little bit beyond his years. Gabe Vincent too. So I don't know. They're asset manufacturers. They've done this before, and it just may look a little different this time.
No, I'm in favor of the asset manufacturing. I've repeatedly said they do that so well that they should never pay an average player anything because they can just manufacture that guy, which is exactly where they went wrong in 16 and 17.
And apparently they're just getting all the best undrafted free agents.
Well, I noticed that. Whose pod was that on?
It was Sam Vecini Game Theory. Guy shared the clip on Twitter, and it was and Vecini was talking about how he's talked to agents.
Yeah.
And he was saying that basically the agents were telling him that, you know, the best undrafted free agents go to Miami, and they're telling them to go to Miami because like they know what they're doing there.
I wonder why.
It's smart
Because culture's not real, guys.
No, he's like, almost all of these dudes that they picked up on their from undrafted free agents were my top 100. And you know, he's a respected, like he keeps up with the college basketball guys really well. And so I just thought that was really interesting.
It's a huge deal. I mean, it's a testament to their development. I'm not going to use the word.
Who needs second round picks, man?
It's a testament to their development, but it's also a testament to the fact that they'll play the guys. Okay, which is, again, if you go back. See, this is where Riley, and I know this is mostly a Spoelstra thing, okay? And it's really more him, all right? There's no question about that. But if you go back historically, Pat got this reputation for not playing young guys. Not really true, okay? He just didn't value draft picks. Mm-hmm. He actually, if you go back to his history, going all the way back to New York, John Starks came in as a young guy. He was a bag boy.
Threw him right out there.
Anthony Mason came out as a young guy. Threw him right out there. Down here,
Alonzo was young.
Alonzo, but I'm talking about the undrafted. I'm talking about the Anthony Carters, the Mike Jameses, the Ike Austins, right through the years, the Udonis Haslams,
Bruce Bowen.
I mean, these guys played. I mean, they have had a Joel Anthony. Okay, these guys have been developed and they play. Now the problem becomes when they pay them after. Whether it's a Hassan or a Tyler Johnson or whatever, but not at the time. Kurt Thomas was a first-round pick, though. But I'm with you, Sean. I get it. Rashawn Leonard, another one.
Good one. Adrian, my dog.
Second-round pick, draft out of Minnesota, was someone else that they picked up. I mean, so they have played young guys. That's not the thing. I just don't think – and I think from a strategy perspective, like accumulating those kind of players, developing those players is great business, okay? And the types of contracts Andy signs them to is great business. My concern is – when you have a roster that's constructed in such a way that you are so reliant on so many of them. And again, we're talking about this, and so we're going to pivot here. I do want to talk about Strus, but obviously the Haslam decision came down. We never did a full pod on it. And this is the only thing. It's like, okay, you've got 15 full-time roster spots. You're only carrying 14 because you don't want to pay the tax because Carnival's lost a lot of money over the past year. Okay, so you're at. Let's just be honest. So you're at 14. You got Oladipo, Michael's guy, out for months. Okay, so that's one spot. You've got Okpala, who's unplayable, and then you've got Haslam.
It's a problem.
You only got 11 spots. The two ways are going to play, and even Barry signaled that in a tweet. I mean, is there a concern? I'll go to you, Greg, on this first. I mean, is there a concern about it's one thing to be good at developing them, but there's so many of them that you're counting on. Gabe Vincent is not really a point guard. Like, you're even playing him out of position.
No, you're spot on that it's risky. Like, you're either going to look like absolute geniuses because a couple of these guys are going to pop just enough for you to get through and eat enough innings to survive. But you're right. Like, if any of us are going to say that we want Kyle Lowry, PJ Tucker, these guys playing big minutes in December, like, no, that's not what we need. And unfortunately, like right now, if you look at the roster, if it's not them, then it's Gabe Vincent and it's Max Strus, as Alex alluded to. So like, it's either going to go horribly wrong or it's going to go really, really well. And they're going to be forced. I just think early on, they're going to get an indication if depth is an issue, and they're going to have to make a quick move. And that's why although I want them to go into the tax, I want them to be smart about it. Don't just sign Wes Matthews because he's the only guy out there, even though I like Wes. Like, if another buyout candidate comes about, that's where you make the move.
All right, Greg, this is where you and I are going to differ. I don't want to burn our whole pod here, but I respect Mickey as an owner. I do. Okay. And I've had many,
you're going to give away the goods, Ethan.
But I'm just telling you, like, this idea about not going to the tax, you're contending or you're not. I'm sorry. Like, that's.
I agree with you.
And supposedly, okay, Spoelstra was told that if he had a team he thought could compete for a title, they would go into the tax. You and I have both heard that. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so
they already missed the mark on going into the tax, though, because it's like, why go into it now if you're going to let guys who can contribute to your rotation? Kendrick Nunn and Trevor Ariza, I'm going to keep bringing this up. walk. Obviously, like they wanted to bring.
I have an
people
idea why. If they execute a mid-season trade where they take on a bunch more salary, or even not a bunch more, it can be just a little bit weighted in one direction or another, can send them into the tax. So they could be thinking about that. And we just don't obviously know that they are looking ahead in that fashion. But obviously, like, that's me being optimistic.
All right, let's get back to the optimism stuff.
Right there, man.
We'll save the rest of this for the pod. I would have kept Kendrick Nunn, but anyway, that's
man. It's crazy. I'm over here like caving for Kendrick now.
$5 million. Come on. I mean, it's not my money, but again, you're either competing or you're not. Michael, let's get to Max Strus then, because I feel like, look, whatever Omer becomes this year, I think is bonus. I think Heat fans have to dial back the expectations a little bit till they see him. But Strus has played, and he's contributed for the Heat already. Like, this is not. I sort of saw this coming. I mean, I tweeted it before, so that and I know, Greg, you saw it coming a little bit before.
Did he get bigger?
You had him pegged. He did get bigger. I can tell you that just what I had heard about Strus was other players on the team think he's really good, and the key players on the team think he's really good. Okay, and so I mean, there was even some conversation about playing him as a small ball 4 last year. Like that's what they think. So I guess, Michael, you've seen him up close. Yeah. I mean, he seems to have the goods. Like I mean. He better, because he's one of the guys they are absolutely now counting on, right?
Yep. I mean, what you want to see out of a guy like Strus, especially in Summer League, is you want to see him dominating, right? If you want him to actually go and contribute, you want to see him playing very well in Summer League, and he's doing just that. Without him yesterday, the Heat have no chance of winning that game. He was the only one hitting 3-point shots. He was the only one opening up the offense for them like that. And it was actually really interesting because at one point when they sat him down to bench him, right, just give him a bit of a breather, he didn't sit in the middle of the bench and talk to the guys playing. He went all the way to the end, sat in between Bam and Udonis Haslem, and they were both giving him advice on everything going on in the game. Like, they were talking about what was going on, what he needed to do, how he could fix it. So I have no doubt that UD and Bam together were like, hey, Strus, at the end in the, for the final shot, sudden death, just take it, bro. You got this. Just walk up, take the shot, and just go from there. So he's not only performing super well, he's also getting a lot of advice from them, which really shows they are excited about Max Strus. So he's definitely going to get a lot more playing time this year, and he looks great. He looks ready for it.
I want to follow on what Michael said. I will get to Adam's comment in a second. So, Greg, put that in your back pocket because we should talk about that before we go. Adam Barai chiming in here. But I think the thing with Strus, too, he competes defensively. He's physical enough defensively. Spoelstra gave him some tough assignments, like from the very beginning last year, which is also an indicator that they like him. And you're right, Michael. That is the tell in Summer League. It's who is the guy that they're going to down the stretch of games who kind of emerges over everybody else. Max Strus's pedigree is not what some of these other guys were, but it just he looks like a second-year Miami Heat player, which we know that jump always comes in that Summer League, and he didn't have the benefit of Summer League last year either before playing with the Heat. I guess what is, Alice, I go to you on, Strus's absolute kind of upside. Because I don't want to, just because he's a white shooter, I don't want to compare him to Hero and to Duncan like everybody else does. Okay, what is what kind of player can he be? Be a 25-minute-a-game player potentially?
I mean, I'm thinking Doug McDermott. No, but seriously, I don't know. I think I don't like comparing him to Duncan, and it feels like he has more of a scoring game than Duncan, right? Where Duncan is. Option 1A is always going to be, the movement shooting, whether he's the one taking the shot or not. His purpose is to create gravity for others. Like I said, whether the shot ends up coming out of his hands or not, whereas Strus is like, well, if I see an opening, to get to the rim, he's going to take it every now and then. He kind of he moves around off the ball too. That's what I like about him. He's always pretty active off the ball. So he's always looking to get himself going there, but it's not, he has different types of scores. So it's also interesting to me because he's stocky, he's big, he seems pretty confident. I don't know. This is some of the stuff that I liked about him last season, but it feels like he's gotten better at all these things, right? And so I don't know. It feels like maybe it's just overreaction to what we've seen, but it feels like he's going to be that backup 3 once the season tips off.
To a certain degree, Greg, do you think that the Kendrick Nunn decision was in any way dictated by Strus, in the sense that, again, not playing the same position, but you want a stockier shooter who can, because we saw one of the problems with Kendrick was when the competition got better, excuse me, particularly in the postseason, he just didn't measure up, just literally. You were playing too many small guards. He's getting blown up on screens. And even though he had a scorer's mentality, he maybe wasn't playable in those situations, but Strus would be potentially. And again, I want to get past the stereotypes, that every, white player that the Heat have can't defend. Which I feel like we get caught up in that a lot. Okay. And it was true with Goran and Tyler last year, but I don't feel it was as true with Duncan. And honestly, I don't feel it was as true with Max. Right. I mean, so it could part of that be the, Nunn, one of the reasons they let Nunn walk, even though he's a different kind of player.
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's likely conversations that go like this. If the tax reimbursement this year was $13 million and Nunn's contract was $5 million and you got to pay him $5 million and you're not getting reimbursed $13 million, is, that number combined worth keeping Nunn? They say no. So they just go with Max Strus. I think that Gabe Vincent is being underrated here. They locked both of those guys up to 2-year deals, guaranteed money. So those are two contributing pieces. But this all goes back to the main point, though. Neither one of those guys do what Kendrick does. And if they're really serious about going all the way here, other than what Adam brought up, and we're going to get to that comment, you keep that guy because you could move him. I guess he would have a no trade clause, but you could still move him. Kendrick,
all right.
You know what I mean?
All right,
we don't hit threes. It's gonna look bad. I just realized that right now. If Gabe and Strus are not hitting threes,
you're right.
Or whatever else they have, those lineups are gonna look bad. Even if they're not playing a lot of those just straight 5 guys from the bench lineups, we're probably gonna see a lot of creative staggering. But the shit goes down the drain when they're not hitting their threes.
Well, let's get to Gabe here. I want a second. Before we do, I want to tell you about one of the sponsors, PrizePicks.com. Make sure you're playing. Maybe if you're not a baseball person, start jumping in on the NFL futures. They've already got the preseason games. I saw they got the numbers for Tua for Saturday night's game. So jump on PrizePicks.com. Use the code 5 FIVE to play the daily fantasy. Again, you can do it on NFL, and you can do the futures for the entire season as well at PrizePicks.com. That's the official daily fantasy of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and here at 5 on the floor. All right, but let's get to Gabe Vincent here real quick, and then I do want to get to Adam's comment. Gabe Vincent is confusing to me because the skill that he was supposed to bring to the table is the one he hasn't brought at all in the NBA. And that's usually the one that translates. If you can shoot, you can shoot. The other stuff as a point guard usually takes time. The ball handling, the defending. Seems fine on the defensive side. Okay, he's a dog defensively. I think that's a major upgrade over Nunn, I think, in terms of his defense. Ball handling could use a little bit of work, but he did have the ball in his hands a lot with Nigeria, which I think probably will be helpful to him. Michael, up close, does he look like a point guard? Because they don't have a backup point guard.
I mean, he looks like he should be a point guard, right? It looks like that's probably the role that he should be filling. I mean, he didn't play in the last game, and I wasn't here for the Sunday one, so I haven't actually seen him play up close and personal this time. But he feels like he seems like he's confident enough to do it. He's gotten other opportunities elsewhere, right? He got to play with Nigeria, like you were saying. He's gotten run with the Heat in games that mattered last season, which is going to go a long ways. The team made sure to have a position for him, and they feel confident enough in whoever's handling the ball that they didn't go and address that elsewhere. So I'm assuming Gabe Vincent has to be factoring into that. And so if he's not, I'd be surprised. But I think it's a lot of Depot as well, because when Depot does come back, they're also going to give him a lot of the ball. And so they're thinking maybe they can have him as a backup point guard. So I think Gabe Vincent might just be in their heads like, this is good enough for now until we get him back.
Michael, sorry, I wasn't laughing at you.
Plus Marcus Garrett. Let's not forget now. Come on now.
Yeah, we'll talk about Marcus Garrett. Are you doing your stretching at 8:30 at night? Anyway, sorry. There's a little activity on the side of me. All right, let's talk about Marcus Garrett here real quick. And I mean, they're going to get two of these guys are getting 2 ways, and they can play up to 50 games. So,
oh man,
50 right?
games. Oh,
Marcus and Deaky.
They're gonna milk that.
Yeah. Of course they are. Of course they did it last year too with Strus and with Vincent until the rule was lifted. So I mean, they're gonna do that. I mean, Garrett's a Heat player. He's a Heat player. Right? I mean, Alex. He's the kind of guy we're gonna hear about 2 years from now, going up. Right? What do you like about him?
No, I was saying also here from the commenter from Ben, he said if Duncan, start day one at point, why can't Gabe be the day one backup? And
I feel like Kendrick was more of a point guard in summer league than Gabe is. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know. He was playing with heroes. Handling.
He had the ball in his hands for sure,
yeah.
But I don't know how much he was actually setting up guys. He did an okay job doing it, but It's a good question because I mean it's not an ideal situation. I think we can all agree like Gabe being your backup, it's not ideal, but that's probably why. And you're talking about Marcus Garrett here. You're talking like Garrett and I think Deke Jerome might get that second two-way spot. You're gonna have two just crazy defensive talents at the guard position. Two guys who seem like they're gonna be able to guard both guard positions, specifically Garrett because he's a little bit stronger. Both guys won different types of Defensive Player of the Year awards in college. So, look, Gabe is going to have the chance to start. But if he starts off and he's really like he can't hit the three at all, like that defensive stuff, it's cool. Like I appreciate that for sure. I want guys to be two-way players. But Garrett and Deke seem like just as good defensive talents. So if Gabe is not hitting that three, I feel like he should have a short leash to give some of those other guards the shot because they're really like they're showing what they're good at over there.
Greg,
I will say,
okay, Michael.
No, I was just gonna say the coolest thing about Garrett was watching him up close defend Bane. Right, like Bane looked flustered almost the entire game, so much so that he started talking trash to Garrett, who wasn't really being too loud about it. But then Caron Butler decided to step in from the bench just because of how frustrated Bane was that he couldn't get anything going, like not a roll with Garrett on him. He had a few good moments because he's a good player, but Garrett is just so good defensively. If there's not a spot for him on this team, I think all of this was a waste of time. He deserves that spot more than anybody else on that roster.
Remember, most of the Heat organization was around when they made a decision to keep Eddie House over Patrick Beverley that they regretted. I don't think they'll make that same decision again. No. And this is a different kind of team. That team required an Eddie House, another kind of veteran. Eddie had one of my favorite quotes that anybody gave me before the Big Three, which was "middle fingers to the haters." That he gave me on the eve of the season, which was one of the better ones. All right, final thing here, and again, follow our sponsors, markbrownpa.com. For your estate planning, and also if you need your title done, he's got a real estate title company right there in-house, and also prizepicks.com and Biscayne Bay Brewing. I'll go to this, Greg, to you, and we'll close here. Adam's comment that if they were really serious about doing something, they would have held on to Iguodala's contract.
There's validity to it. I mean, there's no doubt that like a $15 million expiring contract, if you can unlock picks and attach them, like there's no doubt. So like if we're talking about maximizing every vehicle you have and using every lever to improve the roster, he's dead set on. They're not doing that, and it appears to be for financial reasons, and that sucks.
I'll let Alex and Michael close on this as quote unquote fans of the team. Okay. I mean, how do you feel about, I mean, again, I recognize, Carnival stock, I own some of it. It's gone down quite a bit over the past year. And I get it. And still, people aren't getting their damn shots. So that's delaying the process even further here.
Those
but
cruises haven't started yet. Like they haven't started. I thought they were back.
Not fully. I mean,
no.
So I guess, I mean, that's the question. I mean, but losing billions, but still a billionaire. So I'm taking myself out of this, guys. How do you feel about it?
Oh man, I don't know what to say. It's not my money. I'm not gonna side with the billionaire saying. I mean, you can't go into the luxury tax. Like I just can't vibe with it, man. You're talking about these older dudes. You talk about the win now window, like just over and over again, talking about wanting to win. And it seems like Mickey's not cashing a check, man. He's done it in the past. It's not like he's never done it. He's not as, I feel like he's kind of in that middle ground of owners, right? Where like sometimes he spends, sometimes he doesn't. But even when the Big Three was here, and this is obviously stuff that you have talked about a million times, Ethan, was the stuff that happened with Mike Miller and Joel Anthony. Like this offseason, it has a little bit of a sense of that when it comes to the way that they filled out the rotation, right? Whether you're talking about Andre's $15 million that they didn't accept after the Spurs were just like, fuck Andre, we're not giving you DeRozan in any type of Iguodala trade. We're not going to do that scam. And it seems like that's it. They just kind of gave up on using him as a trade piece in order to get into the tax. Like, I don't know what other reason it would be for. And again, it's like, if you're going to keep yourself, yes, like they don't pay the tax until April or May or whenever it is at the end of the season, and you can make another trade and get over the tax. But it's like, damn, you had guys on the roster right there with their bird rights who walked to another contender. It's just that's what really
listen,
like
just quickly. Iguodala's contract, that expiring, like you would have been able to shop that contract and go get a player like a Marcus Morris, or like you saw Utah wanting to sell off players all of a sudden. Like there's scenarios like that where you could have capitalized and yeah, you'd have been over the tax, but you'd had talent upgrades. So I don't know. You have to look at that a little bit.
Were they just that confident? I mean, like that scared that they weren't going to be able to move Andre? Because what I'm trying to think, why else wouldn't they have opted into it? For example. Like you're not going to do the Kendrick thing. You're not doing Ariza.
Maybe they've said they don't want to attach picks to deals, and like that's the way that you move Iguodala's contract is put a pick with it and then take on a player or something. I don't know. Maybe they don't want to like
KZ or Kendrick. Like damn.
I'd like to get an explanation on it from inside, so I'm going to do my best to get that because it does feel to me like they're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I feel like they think they can contend, but they're not sure.
I mean, they might be reading the tweets from 5 Reasons Sports saying that he's unsure about the roster, and so they're like, "Why are we going to invest in 5 Reasons is unsure?"
Michael, one reason I'm unsure about the roster is the roster is really thin. I mean, I'm not saying it's not. I feel, and again, I don't want to give away everything we're going to talk about. And Adam says, Andre and Tyler, get you a damn good player. We will read that super chat comment before we go, by the way. But and we'll give that money to the Heat so that they can pay the tax. But I mean, I don't want to give away the whole pod, but I mean, I think this team is built for the playoffs. I think so. I think they're really tough out in the playoffs. My concern is, do they have the horses to get them to the right seed in the playoffs and get them there healthy? Okay. That's my issue, is when you're talking about essentially an 11-man roster where like a couple of the guys are just emerging as full-time players for the first time. Okay. You're not going to play Haslam, even though I think they should, because I think he can still play a little bit. And you're not going to have Oladipo for months. KZ is unplayable. You're not keeping a 15th guy. You've got Strus in this role for the first time. Vincent in this role for the first time. Okay. Dwayne Dedmon has an injury history. Okay. And PJ and Lowry are their late 30s. I'm sorry.
But that's the kind of thing that if all of those things happen, right? If all of these things come out like Dwayne's history, one player that they go over the tax for is not going to make the difference on the roster, in my opinion, right? Like adding that one player.
True, but Michael, I will say, but
He's
one
going to
player
end up in that 4-5 bowl again.
Right, but one player who has an issue creates a real issue for them because there's no who's next man up when, I mean, literally there are 4 guys who are going to be, I mean, one's basically coaching from the bench. Again, love him to death, but that's the role they have in him. And one may not be sitting on the bench because he doesn't want to get his quad hurt before he gets back. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's thin. I think they're a really tough playoff out, but I think they could be a 6 seed with guys hurt coming into the playoffs.
Michael's point is well taken, though. Like Michael's point is well taken. It's not that they're not going to spend a $3.5 million biannual exception to get some guy that's out there right now. It's like, if you're going to go all in, then take on Iggy's contract and like really go all in. And I think that's
1 foot in, 1 foot out. I think that's what we saw. That's my concern. And I also don't understand why they're allergic to true point guards. I mean, they went out and got one as a starter, but when is the last time they've had 2 true point guards on the roster? Like, I know Ira used
Timmy and Terry.
Goran and Bano?
Chalmers and Cole. Chalmers and Cole. There we go.
That's well, okay. Maybe it was that, but it doesn't seem like. Here's the
one of them's a part of a really dope sports network. So
that's true. The dopest.
Future Media Challenge MVP.
That's
North Cole.
No. Well, that's true. And I'll start him. Give me that kind of poetic lifestyle. Give me that one time. Too many CBD. I know I'm on the road. I'm not having a CBD. Go ahead. Garrett defense so good he had potential to be a Tony Allen or better. I mean, look, potential, but I'm with Alex on this. He's got to be playable in other ways, right? So he's got to be. I mean, the guys who shoot are going to play because they don't have that many proven shooters. So if he outshoots Gabe Vincent, he'll play, right?
Did you see that he's in like the top 5 in summer league in points per possessions? Marcus Garrett is.
I saw that. Royal, why are you trading everywhere? I just sent you a hat. All right, check out our sponsors. Alex, thanks for joining us tonight. Make sure you tip Alex because we had this whole tip conversation. Thanks for the only one donation that we got tonight. We will apply that to the luxury tax. Thanks to Greg. Thanks to Michael Christian. We got 3 people out in Vegas. That's the thing with 5 reasons.
We got 2 now.
2. Even if you don't credential us, we show up. That's how we work.
That was me 3 years ago.
We crashed. I don't know why you didn't get approved this year. I have no idea. They had a photo of you in the system. I was the only one I just said. I don't understand.
Oh yeah, never had
Confrontations with Spoelstra.
Is that why you have all the lights off, Alex? Is that what's up?
Yeah,
Financial use is just
Yeah,
like
man.
depression, straight up Batman.
He was
Should've
gonna
been in
hold them.
Vegas.
He was gonna hold them all accountable. All right, have a good night, everybody.